أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم ففهمنا سليمان وكلنا آتينا حكما وعلما رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم سبحانك لما وحنانيك أنا لا تنسني ولا تنسني الحمد لله أفضل الحمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آله وسائر النبيين والصالحين وسلم علم وفقني واهدني وسددني واجملي بين الصواب والثواب وعذني من الخطأ والهرمان آمين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to another episode of Questions and Answers. I will be your host for the remainder of roughly an hour. Amjad Muhammad is my name, and I'm not going to say answering questions is my game, but it happened to come out there at that time. So the number to call is 01274 214 299. That's 01274 214 299. We only got one call yesterday, and even that I think was a mistake. Get my buzzing back in my ear from the wasp again. Looks like the wasp is back. As I said, I only got the one call yesterday, so I hope that we get some more calls in today. So that we can deal with your queries directly rather than deal with some of the queries that I have on my groups. They're not a problem, because obviously those questions are also questions, valid questions, and they also give us an opportunity to learn. But it's always good to engage with somebody, otherwise it feels like I'm just talking to a camera, I'm just talking to a monitor, and there's nobody out there listening to me, which of course is not the truth. There are hundreds of you, if not thousands of you, listening to every single word with eagerness. So anyway, inshallah, let's take the first few questions that we have, and let's see what we've got on there. So the first question that we're going to look at is on the chaps group, in which there was a question which came yesterday, and that question, which one was it? Let me go back to it. This one, yep. So this question which came yesterday was about a HR representative working for a private company in Qatar, and part of this job is to sign on an employment letter that allows a non-Muslim employee to go and get an alcohol license to purchase alcohol. Basically, now the company is telling me that the approval is coming from the company and not from my side. So therefore, that should not be a problem with signing on the document. Unfortunately, I'm the only one authorized to sign on this letter for the region, and therefore the company management cannot be signing this on this letter for this region. I want to know if this is permissible to sign on the document, which allows a non-Muslim employee to purchase alcohol. I did say, obviously, that he should not sign on there, and then he replied back with some further details. He says, Jazakallah khair, Mufti Sahab. Just want a bit clarification if possible. The employee in question who is asking for the signature is a non-Muslim Lebanese Christian who don't consider wine to be impermissible in their religion. I take it that this makes no difference to the mas'ala. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yes, it doesn't make no difference to the mas'ala, because you are giving him the authority to buy it. Without your signature, he cannot buy it. If he could buy it without your signature, then it's not a problem. He can go buy it. He's a non-Muslim. It does not affect him. The Sharia is not any effect on him whatsoever. But he cannot buy it until you sign it. When you sign it, then he can buy it. So that is the issue. You are giving him authority. You are giving him permission, which means that you are not just incidental in the process of the purchase. You are, in fact, instrumental in the purchase. Hence, this particular task of the alcohol purchasing should be given to a non-Muslim, or this chap, the Lebanese chap, he himself should be able to purchase it without necessarily approval from yourself or from any other Muslim. So let's that adds to that. Here's another question. Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Would it be allowed for a male or female, if they think a certain person would be right to get married to go up to them and ask them for their father's or guardian's number? So reply. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. No, it would not be proper for a person to go up to a young lady and ask them for their father's or guardian's number. Similarly, a lady does not need to go up to a man to ask for his father's or guardian's number because she's marrying the man and the man does not need a wali. So that she would just literally be going up to him and asking him to marry her. Whereas in the case of the chap, if he's walking up to the lady and he's asking for her father's or guardian's name, it's easy that this can be arranged. He can speak to his sister, he can speak to his mother, he can speak to a female member of his family and say, there's the young lady, she's the one I wish to marry, can you go get her details? And obviously leave it to your mother and she will speak to the young girl and get the details and take it from there. There is no need for you to approach that person. Not sure if this question went unnoticed. It has not been answered. Okay, so Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How is it to use the following two? Are they particular to Brailwis and would their use constitute the shabbo? The Na'lain image often found in stickers, badges on top of hats, etc. and the different colour imamas, red, blue and green. So, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Obviously, there's nothing in the Sunnah or historically of the use of the image of the sandals, the na'al that we see lots of nowadays within the Sunnah or historically. It doesn't exist. In fact, in my youth, it didn't exist. It's only come about really in the last sort of 10 years, but even more so in the last 4 or 5 years. So clearly it's something which is new. Something which has been brought into the as a religious thing, in that it's expected that people will be rewarded for this if they did that. So there is no place for it in the deen at all. Whoever does it, obviously they're just doing it because they're following whatever they're following, thinking that this is a good thing to do. The different colour imamas we've seen in the hadith, particularly that the Prophet ﷺ wore a black imama. Imama is a turban. We see, for example, during Fath Makkah, the conquering of Makkah, he arrived with a black amama. Similarly, when he gave a lecture, a khutbah, he had a black amama on. So, most of the narrations you will come through which speak about the amama, it will be black. However, the Prophet ﷺ also spoke highly of white clothes. He gave it as a priority because he says they're pure and clean. And he said, wear them. And particularly we see for Jummah, he's encouraging the people to wear white. Similarly for Eid, he encourages people to wear white. And we also says that bury your dead in white. So you'll see that the shrouds that we have will always be white sheets. So we know the Prophet ﷺ liked white for the reason I just gave, which was that it's white, is pure and clean. Now, what does it mean by, because material is material at the end of the day, how does material be clean, Basically, if you wear dark coloured clothes, then there can be a possibility of najasa, impurity falling upon them and you not seeing it. Whereas najasa falling, impurity falling on white is crystal clear. In fact, that is one of the annoying things about white clothes, is that even if you've got a little bit of dust on your hands and you touch your jubbah, then you see the mark on your jubbah. So whereas if you've got brown on or something or another colour, you can't see it. So there is no tradition of these other colours that we have, that we wear. We also know that he had he wore other colours. Let's be honest. He wore green. He wore a reddish colour. He wore the kind of basic, what I call colours, neutral colours, because obviously he used animal skins and cotton wasn't really coloured in those days as much. Very basic colouring was used because dyes weren't really that available. So, we could, again, by extension, see that if the Prophet ﷺ wore a certain colour, then in clothing, then we could extend that and say, well, maybe we can wear a coloured amama as well. But there's no record of it as such like that. As I said, in the hadith, it mentions black. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. If any member of the Islamic faith visits a temple or any other place of worship other than the mosque and bow their head, called up to receive an award or title from the queen or king, where there is an element of bowing or kneeling down with your head in bowing position, will this by any means in Islam invalidate one's iman? If one is offered a medal or title which involves bowing your head in respect, should one accept or decline the offer? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's very difficult to give a general answer to this because this can vary from place to place. Sometimes, there's no way really, if you are in a high place and somebody is in a lower place, for you to get a medal without lowering the head. And then you're not lowering the head out of ta'zeem, respect or honor, but like you would lower your head if you're walking through a doorway and that doorway was a low doorway or you were an exceptionally tall person. So you would lower your head to practically go through there. Like we see in the Olympics, for example, when we stand on the third place, second place, first place, then they're usually high up. And they're high up so that the people, the spectators, can see you and see who came first, who came second, who came third. Then obviously some dignitary or some person will come out with the medals and they place them on the head. And as they're placing them, then naturally the person has to lower the head because they're quite high up. And we see that even in football matches, in the Champions League or in the Premier League, when the people go up to receive their reward. If they go up the stairs like they used to in Wembley, then the people who are giving the medals out are higher up. So then the person doesn't have to lower their head. But when they're giving them out, when they make the platform on the pitch and then they're giving them out, then naturally the person has to lower his head. So in that case, he's not doing it for ta'zeem, to show honor or to show respect. It's just practically that's how it is. Even in those cases, if it's at all possible, one should try to take the medal rather than have it placed upon their head, if it is all possible. But remember, that's a very different type of lowering the head. If the lowering of the head is done out of, as you say, honor, to show respect, especially in a religious environment, which signifies, having the head of the state or having the head of the church there, and in a church environment, then there seems to be a religious element to it, then in those circumstances, yes, the person should avoid doing so. It's unfortunate because as Muslims, when the first Muslim was honored in that way, if he or she had the confidence and the self-assurance of their religion, they could have explained it and said, look, as Muslims, we can't bow to anybody but Allah. And, we found, the UK, England in particular, and the other countries that make up UK, are, they will take that into consideration and they're flexible enough to say, well, okay, this impacts on this person's religion, so we'll carry it out in such and such way, or we'll carry it out in such and such way. But because the first person did it and didn't do it, and the second person didn't do it, and the third person didn't do it, and the fourth person, now obviously when somebody decides that I'm not going to, it's seen obviously as a form of disrespect. Now that, hold on, what problem do you have? It's usual when you start at a workplace, and when you start at a workplace, you're the first person who says, oh, I need a prayer room. So the boss goes, well, I've had Muslims working for me for the last 20 years, and not a single Muslim has asked me for a prayer room. So why are you asking for a prayer room? So then it makes the poor Muslim who's asking for a prayer room in a worse situation because, he's asked for it. Why the Muslims who've been working for the last 10, 20 years not asked for it? Allahu A'lam. So really, any Muslim or the first Muslim that gets into a situation that other Muslims haven't got into, then he shouldn't just be scared and worry about himself and his job. What he should be thinking of is, look, I have got an opportunity here to set the stall out and start a sunnah, which means that anybody who comes after me will benefit from me. So if the first Muslim who goes and joins a workplace says, by the way, as a Muslim, I need to pray, and obviously I'm going to be working here from 9 to 5, so, I will in the summer be probably praying one prayer here, but in the winter I will most likely be praying 3 prayers here. I will be praying Dhuhr, Asr and Maghrib. So is there a separate area? Don't worry, I will take my prayer time in my breaks or in my lunch, so it won't impact my work whatsoever. In fact, it will positively impact my work because it's a way of de-stressing. It's a way of disconnecting from the world and recharging my batteries so I can be even more so productive in my working environment. But I just need a quiet place. It doesn't need to be fancy. It can even be a cupboard room, or it could even be a small room where the photocopy is kept, or whatever, or anywhere in particular. And, please, I can use that room. And, you'll find that the people are even more accommodating. And they say, no, we don't want you praying in the broom room. We're going to give you a separate room. The conference room is not used at this time. At lunchtime, you can use my office because I go out for lunch. So at lunchtime, you don't have to worry about it. You can use my office. And for the other 2 times, then conference room number 3 is never used in the afternoon, so you can use conference room number 3. In fact, I'll give you the key. Well, nowadays it's not key, it's all key coded and swipe cards and all the rest of it, and you can go pray there. So, and this person thinking, mashallah, jazakumullah, I was only asking for a little space somewhere and I would have prayed, but you've actually offered me a separate room. Now when the next dude comes in, or the dudette comes in, who's got a job here, and they are sort of like a bit hesitant and saying, I just wanted to ask one more thing about prayer, the boss is going to say, don't worry about it. We've got Abdullah working here, and for him, and makes this person's life so easy. She or he will say, alhamdulillah, jazakumullah khair for Abdullah. So now this prayer room, everybody who prays there, this person will get reward for it. So, it's this short-sightedness, unfortunately, that, we always fear that we're gonna lose our jobs. I don't know why we've got this kind of fear that exists in our mindset. And also sometimes we don't want to be different, We don't want to be seen to be different. We want to fit in in the staff room, for example, or we want to fit in with our colleagues in the office. We don't want to be seen to be strange or weird and say, whilst everybody's in the staff room having a bit of gupshup, and then we get up and walk out. So after a while they say, Abdul, why is it that you always leave, at break time when we're having a bit of a, banter, a bit of chit chat, and you get up and go, and then you think, oh God, I got to tell him I pray. How much of your religion are you going to hide? What are you going to do? You're going to say that I don't fast now? So when it comes to the month of Ramadan, and everybody's eating, what are you going to say? Oh, I'm not eating today, I'm on a diet. They say, oh, what kind of diet is it? Well, I don't eat anything. How much of your religion are you going to hide? And then, when you say about your wedding, then, oh, I better not invite them to my wedding because, they're going to think, oh, these guys are weird. They sit separately or they do their weddings very different than us and, and all the rest of it. And that's why you find, unfortunately, that weddings start to become very much like kind of non-Muslim weddings or Christian weddings because we feel so awkward and uncomfortable of our own identity. So we want to shed our identity. We lack the confidence and we prefer to adopt another identity. So we're not, again, abnormal, different. We want to fit in. We've got this eagerness to fit in. But our religion sets us apart. Our religion doesn't allow us to fit in. It sets us apart. There's a reason why it sets us apart, because those people who we wish to kind of fit in with, their hereafter is going to be very different than the hereafter that we want. We're very confident and very, bullish about saying, oh, we're going to go Jannah, we're going to go Jannah. Well, calm down. If you want to fit in with people who don't have that philosophy, who don't believe that there's a hereafter, then why are you silly thinking you're going to get hereafter? Surely you've got to live slightly differently than those people who don't live for a hereafter. How can you live your life like those people who don't believe there's a hereafter when you believe there's a hereafter? There's a big, massive problem here. There's a massive, paradigm move that you have to make where, you need to understand that this is something problematic. So, whether it's weddings or whatever it might be. And, as I said, there's images where, for example, Muslim ladies met with, say, Prince Charles or some of the royals and shook hands and whatever. And then you see one particular sister who doesn't shake hands, and she actually explains it to the prince as to why she's not shaking hands. And he gets it and he understands it. So now the next time, he will see whether this Muslim sister wants to shake hands or doesn't want to shake hands. But that's, the education process. Now, it's unfortunate that obviously the head of our state, or, I don't know, the 8th in line or the 6th in line to be the head of our state, doesn't understand Islamic Muslim protocols when we are the biggest minority religiously in the UK. So you would think that there needs to be an element of education that needs to take place. So, at the end of the day, she is our queen, and soon we may have a king. And they are our king. It's not that they're just king and queen for the Christians. They are king and queen for all the citizens of Britain. And we live in a multicultural society. We live in a multi-ethnic society. We live in a multi-faith society. And that's something which we take great pride in because the UK, we feel, is one of those countries where our ethnicity and our race and our religion is something which should be celebrated, not something which should be looked down upon. And it's good to see, we've recently seen what's going on at the Yorkshire Cricket Club, with regards to the cricketer who complained about racism and how the country has reacted. It's really heartwarming to see that there's been, numerous people stepping down from their role within the Yorkshire Cricket Club. We've seen MPs demanding change, as high as our Prime Minister. It's been a clear message that this is unacceptable in the 21st century. This cannot be tolerated. And that gives a vote of confidence for all brown people and black people and coloured people in whatever role that they're in. That, hold on a second here, I don't have to put up with this. This is not banter. This is not something which I should tolerate. This is not something which I should accept. This is something I should stand up to. I remember my father telling me tales of how, times were when he was working here in Bradford in the 60s and 70s, where, one particular foreman expected expected all the workers to line up and salute him in the morning. So obviously, my father, being somewhat of a rebellious sort, chose not to do that. But some chose to do that. Some, felt that they might lose their job, so they started to salute and kind of like as he came onto the shop floor or on the work floor. So you see all these sorts of things, and that was, like I said, in the 60s, and here we are. Fast forward about 50 years or 60 years now, and sorry, 60s and 70s, and now we fast forward, nearly 60 years, and unfortunately we're still seeing it, and it's shocking when you think about it that somebody of a different name, of a different religion, of a different culture, of a different color is still set on upon or differentiated. Instead of finding things which are commonalities in all of us, we're still looking at things which differentiate us, and that's sad to see. And as I said, we should be celebrating our diversity in our communities rather than trying to shun them or ridicule them or make people feel awkward about them or feel that, this is strange, I better not talk about what really goes on in our house because maybe they're not used to Asian households and whatever. Like when I was at school, there was always this thing that, how many people live in one house? It would just seem so strange that so many people lived in one house. It was just so, different to how the indigenous English culture was in the kind of sort of middle class. Not necessarily the working class, because even in the working class, the family sizes were quite big. So anyway, that's covered that particular topic. It was an interesting question, which led to an interesting discussion. And we are now, fast approaching our first interval, our first break. I've lost my earpiece, so I don't know if there's been any calls coming in, but I'm sure I will be back after the short interval with my earpiece, so that I will be fed the information if there's anybody calling in. If you've not called in, what's going on? Has everybody switched Iqra TV off, Oh, I do have a call waiting, but unfortunately I can't take that call because we're 10 seconds away from an interval. So I apologize for that, dear caller. So if you please stay on the line or call back in 5 minutes or 4 minutes time, then I'll be able to take your call. Otherwise, we're now going to go for a break, and we will return after this break in a few minutes, not long. And then inshallah, I will call out for the number, and hopefully the caller will still be there so I can speak to our dear caller. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.